Hello, this is Kathleen from the World Economic Federation. Today we are discussing the question of national security of the countries that participate in the Federation. Today's leaders in the U.S. are all too happy not to rock the fossil fuel boat. They don't want to antagonize their fossil fuel donors, but they also do not want to be seen as weak or doing nothing to address the problems of the people. Still, they can't come to you to compete with the billions of overt and covert contributions of a trillion-dollar industry. Democracies, however, listen to the people who want to fix the climate crisis, while fascism, run by oligarchs, says that it does not matter what the people want. Oligarchs know that if they cannot compete in a truly capitalist system, they need the kleptocratic system of fossil fuels hiding behind the trappings of democracy and capitalism. What happens when the will of the people and a sustainable economy are at odds with continued dependence on unlimited fossil fuel profits and consumption? Do the politicians say, 1. Well, we are a democracy first and foremost, and my loyalty to this democratic experiment is what I serve, so I will put my weight behind supporting the will of the people? Or do they go with the second option? What? Gerrymandering the districts isn't working anymore? Quick, shut down polling locations. Already did? Make fewer people eligible to vote. You did that too? Clearly, democracy is being corrupted by listening to too many people in it. Quickly, put out to our friendly propaganda channels that the election has been stolen. And if you just destroy democracy during the counting of the electoral votes, I will be sure to get you that evidence once I can manufacture it from a position of power. Don't worry, we will declare any attempt at accountability as political. And because the other side is weak, nothing will be done but performative measures towards underlings that do nothing to dissuade the action in the future. They let Nixon's cronies go last time, and they are helping us this time. They would never dare send one of us to prison. That would just not be very collegial. You ever notice that the crimes they think you might commit demand justice? But in response to our calling out all of their crimes, they tell us we are being uncivil and clutch their pearls in shock. For us to point out, or God forbid one of them gets indicted, is somehow uncivil, while in contrast, literally breaking the laws of civilized society and democracy is what? Good cricket, old chap? Just like those good old Eton days? When those allies fail to overthrow democracy, OPEC leaders will try again more directly, by cutting production leading up to elections in an effort to try to destroy the economy, putting at risk the global economic recovery from COVID, all so that their allies in the United States can raise money on the harm of that damage, while blaming people that have nothing to do with the decisions of OPEC, such as liberals, the Green New Deal, taxes, religious minorities, the free press, democracy, and equitable economics. Do you think a fragile little OPEC princeling wishes to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States? Why would you allow companies that answer to him or his industry to have say over that election? It's bad enough when allegedly American corporations, who claim at least to have loyalty to the democratic experiment, behave in a manner that contradicts their statements, and they are believed. It is beyond stupid and absurd that we sit around and pretend that the heir to an authoritarian monarchy deserves our government's protection from lawsuits because he likes to send hit squads after American residents. How big of a bitch of the fossil fuel industry does our leadership have to be that they murder your own residents, and apparently as long as the hit squad disposes of the body, a fist bump is all it takes to get back into the good graces of the U.S.? The holders of most government posts swear to uphold and defend the Constitution. What part of uphold and defend the Constitution says, give fist bumps to people that murder your residents and undermine your democracy? Did you elect the Saudi Crown Prince to the House of Representatives? Should he be put in charge of the Department of Energy? Of course not. He's never worked a day in his life. He pays people for that kind of stuff. But would you want someone who works for the Saudi government to shape energy policy? If you don't have a problem with OPEC's attempt to interfere with U.S. elections on behalf of their fossil fuel ally Russia, who is currently seizing the fossil fuel assets of their neighbor and committing genocide in the process, I don't know why you follow this channel. What, is he going to promise not to interfere with American democracy again with all the blowback he has gotten from the left and right side of the aisle? Just kidding. They are being very collegial. Just like they are towards the fossil fuel allies behind the January 6th attacks. Sure, the rank and file that were lied to get them to come to the Capitol. But the leaders, financiers, propaganda outlets, they all get a pass, unless someone sues them in civil court. How is the nation secure when the justice system for the elite is based on a completely different set of rules than the rest of us? When the elite can attempt to overthrow democracy, feeling secure in their safety by using what they see as disposable proxies and counting on the corruption of their peers, is anyone secure? Be it the targeted victims or their radicalized victims who they sent to do the misdeed. Tell me how your leaders can keep you safe if they are just waiting to find out how much they are going to be paid to look the other way. Sure, Jamal Khashoggi was a foreign national, but he was a legal resident. You may tell yourself that he wasn't an American in order to feel better. But how many people have been killed less immediately by fossil fuels and other environmentally damaging industries? Did the government come as a sword of righteous vengeance when corporations poisoned Americans' drinking water, causing sickness, suffering, and death, or melted down the financial system due to fraud? Or was it all very civilized, where they pay out a few million that the insurance might cover anyhow? And even if insurance doesn't, they can write off any penalties from their taxes, and it's all far less than the shiny new pipeline your politicians are going to build them anyhow. You do not get to write off feeding your family healthy, nutritious meals from your taxes, but if someone puts carcinogens in the groundwater and gives little Billy a tumor, it might cost them money after 20 years of delay tactics, plus Billy died 10 years ago, and they get to write off everything not covered by insurance. But yes, your leaders care about your kitchen table needs when terrorists get fist bumps and American tables stand empty of loved ones to feed corporate profits. Have you ever thought, hey, this doesn't make sense. We have all this technology and know-how. How can we not have addressed all these problems by now? It's a reasonable thing to wonder, isn't it? It is the ease of that point which allows so many unbelievable conspiracy theories today to thrive. If we have all of the pieces needed, why can we not fix this stuff? The problem is not technological. It is in fact economic, and our leaders either know this or are too oblivious and incompetent at their jobs. For example, there are two economic mechanics that already exist today that could solve the very problems that we have. The first, of course, is the concept of the energy future as the non-governmental precursor to the two stages of the energy reserve credit and energy credit, where the ERC, of course, is the energy future. The other technology, from the government side, is the concept of the war bond. One could be forgiven for wondering why we have not had a war on climate change bond, when climate change is an existential crisis not just in the United States, but for modern civilization. Admittedly, the Federation has certain superior traits to those concepts, such as being separate from the current establishment systems, the fact that we can be an honest broker in an international community that has a lot of reason for mistrust, and the fact that we are democratically controlled and directly answerable to the people who count on it. The problem here lies in being unable or unwilling to see solutions that sit outside the frame of reference for our current economy. We do not recognize that we see within a framework, or if you'd rather, through a particular shade of eyeglasses. If you ever read The Wizard of Oz, as opposed to watching the movie, you might remember that when Dorothy and her companions entered the Emerald City, they were required to put on special glasses, and everything in the Emerald City appeared to be wonderfully green. Of course, that is only because they were green-colored spectacles. The city itself wasn't made of emeralds. It just looked that way, and the only way to see it differently was to remove the required spectacles. If you can't imagine the world without the imposed structure of the fossil fuel industry, It may just be the spectacles you've grown used to wearing. They will not want you to take off those glasses because with them, you can't see that the system is working exactly as intended. But the question we have to ask here is, can we expect our leaders to provide national security when our security constantly yields before the needs of the fossil fuel industry? How do you secure the nation when your leaders sell off that security for profit? Given that if you killed a reporter, you would not get a fist bump and protection from 2 presidential administrations, I get the distinct impression that our leaders think they don't work for you. On one side, you have a foreign authoritarian who only offers the American people suffering, murder, pain, terrorism, and corruption. And on the other, you have a system that addresses the climate crisis, protects and secures democracy and a more secure America, rebuilds the middle class, eliminates taxation, and looks out for your veterans. Yet our leaders are far more interested in meeting an OPEC executive than doing their job as a servant of the people. It is hard to feel an abundance of national security when you can see world leaders endlessly willing to wage war over fossil fuels. In wartime economies, you can always print more money for the war effort, but the rest of the country's problems, like social programs, get short shrift. Is it any wonder that we might want to just produce our own power, sell it to the grid, and take the fossil fuel-dominated energy market's money and put it into our pockets? Wouldn't it be nice if their profits ended up in our pockets and nobody had to die for it? The most effective way to improve America's national security is to get the American government working for the American people again. We could have the largest army and the best technology, but it is all for nothing if our leaders are for sale to betray the interests of Americans in service to the fossil fuel industry. How many of our wars have been over the control of fossil fuels? And now that fossil fuel industry and their allies in the military-industrial complex have leveraged our children's future to the hilt, they want to be the arms dealers to the world as oil wars continue and the checks keep rolling in. Tell me, who do you think really runs things if our leaders would rather risk a nuclear holocaust than betray the interests of the fossil fuel donors? By eliminating the incentives of controlling fossil fuel and depriving fossil fuel interests of income with which to corrupt politicians who would let them kill you for a fist bump, you make America more secure. You make our armed forces more secure. You make our economy more secure. But most importantly, you would have, in time, a UBI and a living wage job. That makes our entire society more secure. Here is your chance to make the world a safer place and to make capitalism pay, just like it promised.